of you are part of our first Grad and Go collaborative chat for
Yay.
distance learning.
Mhm.
This idea really came about from a dialogue with our ELA team at KRESA, and we've just been saying how impressed we are with both the resiliency and creativity that we're seeing with teachers during this unprecedented time. And we're like, how do we get teachers from different districts to be able to collaborate with each other, share great ideas, teach one another? And so we decided to put together this format. So we thank you for coming. You are personally invited. We think all of you are just amazing educators, and we look forward to hearing your feedback on how we can even make this more impactful for all of you. So the way that we're going to be structured today, and each of these different learning opportunities are going to provide some time with a little bit of learning around how to effectively use remote learning, and then how do you take that learning and then apply that into practical tips that you can implement in your classroom the very next day. We always want to showcase teachers and the great work that you're doing. And so this time we're going to be spending some time thinking about authentic engagement and then integrating that authentic engagement into phonemic awareness and phonics instruction. And during this time, I'll prompt you when you'll be able to ask questions in the chat, and so that we can kind of collaborate and get some other answers from one another. Okay. So as we get started, we're going to start with Debbie. And Debbie's just going to provide a little background into some big ideas around active engagement. So Debbie, you are up first.
All right, thank you. It is so great to see everybody, first of all. I just have missed seeing all your faces and working with everybody. And so as we move into hearing from Amy and Katie today, I just wanted to give you a little background knowledge. This idea about active engagement really came about from two webinars that Dr. Anita Archer put out in April on how to add active engagement into remote or distance learning. One thing, she really decided to share these ideas regardless of your platform. So whether you're doing live lessons, recorded lessons, or providing packets, she has given some ideas about how to increase active engagement. And she put out two webinars, part 1 and part 2. And as I'm talking, Kristen Rizzuto is going to pop those webinars right into the chat. Each one is about an hour and a half long. And they give, again, extremely practical ideas that you're going to see and hear in action from Amy and Katie in just a moment. Also, after she put out the two webinars, she created two recorded lesson examples, one for spelling and one for informational text. I have watched both of those recorded lessons and have taken away some of her tips and tricks that I'm going to be using with kids later this afternoon. So again, those will be in the chat from Kristen Rizzuto. But before we move on to Amy, I just want to leave you with 4 big ideas that Anita Archer had shared in her webinar. So if you take a look at the screen, number 1 is that good instruction is good instruction, regardless of your learning platform. Number 2, just the focus should be on learning, not only the technology. Number 3, keep the structure simple and predictable so students know what to expect. It's not boring for them. It gives them a sense of normalcy. And then Daniel Willingham, a researcher that Dr. Anita Archer referenced, put out this statement: what you think about is what you learn. So again, regardless of your format for distance learning, what you have the kids think about is what they will learn. So again, those were her big 4 ideas. The resources are in the chat, and we also have access to the PowerPoint slides. So if you want those, you can also send those, just send me an email. We'll make sure to send those out as well.
So one more thing to make this even more fun, we have 2 gift cards from BookBug that we're going to randomly select at the end of this time. So if you would just pop your name into the chat, then at the very end, Nicole is going to pull 2 winners. Debbie, before you go ahead and get started, we have a question for you. Did you find, lost my question. Did you find Anita's recommendations for activities easily transferable through a Zoom Google Meet meeting, and would they apply to multiple grade levels?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question, because sometimes I always get worried to think about, is this really something I could do in a Zoom setting or a Google Meet setting? And absolutely, I think Amy and Katie are both going to highlight that piece. And although all of you are just K-3 teachers, I could see these strategies, especially the informational text recorded lesson, could go into middle and high school as well. So great question. Yes.
Okay, awesome. So Amy Edlifson is joining us for second grade from Winchell Elementary in KPS. And she's going to take a little bit of that theory that Debbie was talking about and just share some tips and things that are going well for her as she meets with her students. If you would, go ahead while she's talking. If you have any questions that pop up, just put them in the chat. And then I'll be monitoring that. And then Amy can answer some of those questions that you might have. Okay, so awesome. Here's Amy.
Thank you. Good morning, teachers. Yeah, I have a classroom of about 28 students, and so on average, I have between 22 and 26 attending on 3 times a week. KPS is wanting us to do 3 30-minute lessons at the K-3 level, and so just so you know what my expectations are as a district and what I'm putting out each week. But what I'm finding, though, is that the strategies, especially as they're laid out from Anita Archer's her talks, they're extremely transferable, things that you can do right away. And a lot of these are actually things that she talks about in her video that I've implemented with my students. They work with whole group and they work with small group. I'm actually doing a couple of small groups as well with like 3 to 5 students, and they work in really both settings. And so one thing I found at the beginning is that I really need to just make my expectations clear regardless, just like we do in the classroom, expectations in order to have active participation and the kids focused. The expectations have to be clear. Learning time, it's mics off, screens on, those kinds of clear expectations. And I go over those every single time we get together in small group and in large group. 2 things that I implement at every time we get together, except for my just my social get-togethers, but any academic get-togethers, 2 things that I always do is have the students have something to write with and something to write on. Some of the students have a whiteboard and a marker. Some of the kids have pencil and paper, a marker and paper. I don't care what the method is, as long as it's something to write with and something to write on. And we do some kind of bell work. So the kids understand that from the very beginning that this is learning time and that they're really focused on whatever specific skills that I'm trying to implement that in that 30-minute session, because it goes by really fast. Things I use for bell work are things like count bys, like count by 5, count by 2s, count by 10s. Do like 2-syllable words. I'll do like a check-in, social emotional learning check-in. Like on Monday we did, what was one way that you showed your mom love this weekend? And I have them do that in the chat. Now I have second graders, and so they're able to write some of those things down, but you could have them draw a picture if you're doing like a K or 1. But it allows them, one, they love to use the chat. It's such a fun feature and they want to use it anyway. So I feel like if I give them a chance to use it right away, it gives me immediate feedback, keeps them busy thinking academic, and it allows me to take attendance and kind of get connected as the kids are all kind of logging on for those first 5 minutes. So those are the 2 things I do for every lesson, small group and large group, paper, pencil, and then some kind of bell work when they first get there. The next kind of section is I use for quick feedback. The students use a couple different ways that I want to get feedback from them right away. Their mics are off the whole lesson just because there's no way that I can keep 25 little voices and the noises that are happening in their house quiet while we're teaching. So their mics are off for the most part the whole lesson. And so I use a couple different things. One is the chat. It can be really quick and easy to use for like a quick answer, like a fluency check for number fluency. I used it yesterday for an author's purpose lesson where they had to either choose inform or persuade, and they just put an I or a P in the chat. A truth, things like that. Even just writing a quick sentence. Write me a sentence that explains your thinking for this. Now, at second grade, they're able to do this, and maybe even the end of first. But any kind of quick answer where you'd like the kids to give you some feedback on some one or 2 word phrases or a yes or no, that kind of thing, you could get that feedback fairly quickly. I use thumbs up and thumbs down. I've made it really clear with my students that I like them to use their thumb up in the picture in the video and not the emoji on the side. They want to use the emoji on the side because it's fun. But I can't keep track nearly as well with who's saying yes and who's saying no, I don't understand, or yes, I think that's the right answer, or no. So if I do a visual thumbs up, I can see that so much more clearly as I scan across all of their pictures. And the last thing is something that I've done in the classroom, and it works pretty well on the screen. It can be a little glitchy with the kids getting their papers up onto the screen, and that's just a 3, 2, 1 show me. I'll kind of give them a minute to work out a problem, like a longer addition or subtraction problem. And then I'll say 3, 2, 1, show me your picture of what you did, or for spelling a word. It allows me a chance to kind of see their work. And I usually can get a quick scan, and I'm looking for those students who I know maybe are not going to understand the concept or are going to need additional help, and I specifically target and keep an eye on those students. The last way is a nice way to kind of get some evaluation for how, like a quick quiz to see how they're doing. This would be an opportunity to use either like, we've used it in math for like time, or reading graphs, answering questions. And so if you number their paper, if they say, okay, number 1 to 3 or 1 to 5, it allows me to do a quick fact fluency check with them. It allows me to do some basic spelling words with them. It just kind of gives me a quick quiz and allows me to kind of see where they're at. And then at the end, oftentimes I'll have them tell me, okay, out of 5, show me how many of those you got correct. And they can kind of show me, yes, I got, and I can, for the most part, they're pretty honest about how well they did. And then there's also some evaluation skills for them to actually think about their own learning. In kind of thinking about a new skill, we had to learn we learned telling time to 5 minutes about 2 weeks ago. And because it's kind of a new skill, I wanted to kind of see how they're feeling about it. Some kids really understood it, kind of knew it before coming in, and some kids, this was all brand new. And so giving them a chance to do a self-eval and say, yeah, I'm really confident, I totally get this, or I could use some more help, or I'm really confused. Visually, I like the 1, 3, and 5. As opposed to a 1, 2, or 3, because I can see much more clearly. A 5 says, I've got it, I'm good to go. A 3 is, I'm okay, I could use maybe a little more practice, but I'm feeling pretty good about it. And a 1 is, I'm really confused. And so 1, a 3, and a 5, the kids can show, for me, I can see it much more clearly when I'm looking at a sea of 22 little faces. And it's a great tool for the kids to kind of reflect, do I need some more practice? And I've oftentimes kept a group of 3 or 4 students for an extra 5 minutes at the end of the lesson and just reviewed again what we talked about, just like you would do in the classroom if they're able to do that. That was a lot. I feel like I ran through that really fast. But the last thing I wanted to just talk about too is some of the social and emotional learning aspects of this time. And it feels very much like there is so little time, especially for our lesson times. I feel like with a very chatty class, because my allergies are bugging me this morning, with the time we have, 30 minutes, 3 days a week, and I keep them on silent the whole time. They are wanting to talk and wanting to share. And so I've done a couple of things. One is I do sometimes will introduce during our bell work some kind of emotional learning, social emotional learning. Ask them how they're doing, give me a word. We've been doing Move This World, and so the kids are really familiar with a lot of the language we've talked about emojis or about feeling words. I'll pull up my poster and show them and say, okay, I want you to give me one word that's describing how you're feeling this morning. But even more so, I've actually started doing, and I started this really early on, a lunch chat. And this is a chance for students once a week to get on with just 5 or 6, 7 other kids. And we just sit for a half an hour and we just talk. And we talk about how they're doing. And a lot of the kids will eat their lunch while we're sitting and talking. They love it. And I love it too. It's a chance for me to kind of touch base with them and see how they're doing. Not everybody comes every time. But a lot of the kids, if they miss it, I get a very quick email from mom or dad saying, we missed it, can we come another day? And obviously, yes, of course you can come another day. But just for the sake of keeping the numbers low and the conversation flowing, It's really a great time for them to practice conversational skills and waiting their turn. And they show me their Lego stuff, and they show me their dog, and we talk about what they're having for lunch. But I also get to check in and ask them, like, have you gotten on Zern? How is it going for you? Have you gotten on Epic? What books are you reading right now? And I take a lot of kind of academic notes about answering questions for the kids if they're not sure how to get on something. If they have recommendations, I'll take those recommendations and share them out. I had one student who was like, this series on Epic is so cool. And so I let the whole class know, this is a really fun series if you're looking for a new series to read. And it just gives them, it empowers them to feel like that they're part of our learning community, even though it's a distance. And we really only have a few moments of our week together. But it's been really great. And I look forward to that time. It's been really fun, and the kids enjoy it. We've done everything from like throwing out random math problems for Mrs. Edlifson to solve, to sharing our dogs, to talking about books we've read, to showing off our backyards. They want to show off their whole world to their friends and to me. And so it's a really great chance for those kids to just have a chance to just be 8 again and chat and be silly and talk, and they want your ear. They want to talk with their friends. And it's a great opportunity for them to do some of that just social emotional growth time as they're getting prepared for 3rd grade. So
I love that idea. You know, the first thing I thought of is Essential One and how we're trying to create that motivation and engagement, and just having them share book series and different things back and forth. As a parent, I know that my own child like craves that instruction. So I love that idea of like, let's use the lunch chat for, you know, our social time, but then prioritizing instruction over here. You did have a question that popped up in the chat. What do you do if kids are using the chat inappropriately?
I have had a couple of boys that like to get on there and send messages back and forth during the learning time. One way to kind of nip that in the bud is, again, make those expectations clear. The chat is for learning things. It's for a learning time. This time is learning time. We do use the chat during our lunch chats to be silly. I've not had any inappropriate as far as like something that I wouldn't want them posting. More of it's just the time frame. I'm teaching right now, so we're not chatting with our friends. But I have had to call a couple of kids out and make it very clear in my meetings, in my classroom time. If you cannot manage the chat appropriately, then you and I and your mama will have a conversation. And that seems to nip it in the bud. And if I had to, then I would just email a mom and I would say, look, I need this to stop, or they are not invited to come to class time. And I will send them their work through an email. Because that time is so precious, I just need the kids to understand, just like our learning time at school is so important, it's not their job to continue to be silly and goof around during that time. And so I've just made it super clear. I get kind of mean, and it's nipped it in the bud fairly quickly.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
So as you guys have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. I am monitoring the chat, and we'll make sure that we get your questions answered. Next up is Katie Clark. She's a literacy consultant with us at Kalamazoo RESA, and she's going to take this idea of authentic engagement and integrating it with phonemic awareness and phonics, and she has some instruction that we're going to be taking a look at. As you have questions or other thoughts, go ahead and pop them in the chat, and we'll give her a chance to answer some of those after. There was my husband, right? Isn't that real life? Like, what are you doing?
Yes. Yeah, you might also hear my son in the background as well. Good morning. I'm so excited to see everybody here. I'm also really working on figuring out how, when you freeze your video, that you have like a good shot there instead of the random middle of when I'm talking. So anyway, I'm going to take a little bit of those tools that Amy was talking about and incorporating those tools into literacy instruction with phonemic awareness and phonics, and how to pull that engagement piece in. So I created like this clip of just a few things that I did in a phonemic awareness and phonics lesson. So you won't see the whole video. I always start by stating the learning goals so that that purpose is set for the learning for the day. But I keep those routines very simple and familiar for the kids. Of course, when I'm in the classroom, I'm using different routines that don't necessarily translate to virtual learning. So I had to modify my routines just a little bit, but you just want to make sure that they aren't having to focus on how to follow the routine, that they're able to focus on the content of what you're learning. Every time, as Amy stated, when I have them come to my lessons, I have them bring something to write with and something to write on, so that they have that available when we need it. And at the end, I always set a little, give them an assignment to follow up. This lesson in particular is recorded. Ideally, you'd be doing phonemic awareness and phonics lessons live with your students, just because then you can see their mouths. Again, Amy stated she keeps them muted, but you can watch their mouths to see what they're doing. And then once you've done some practice calling on individuals to read words or answer questions is always good as well. So as I said, ideally it's live, but in reality, we know that's not always possible. So I tried to build some engagement into this recorded lesson so that the kids are still responding. And then the follow-up assignment I have them do is to read a decodable text on their own. And so I always suggest that they record that, or the teacher during the live lesson asks a few kids to volunteer to read theirs out loud that have practiced. And then I always also, this lesson is for kindergarten, so I have them look around their house to find something that has the sound in it, find 3 to 5 things, and bring that to their next class meeting so that they can share something that contains the sound that we're focusing on for the week. So with that being said, I'm going to have Nicole play the video. I just start with phonemic awareness and then move into phonics, and then there's spelling at the end. So it kind of jumps from clip to clip, and I'm still working on my video editing skills as well. So just know that it will jump from one activity to the next. And there's no sound.
Mm-hmm. Katie, you could just do a voiceover here.
Yeah, I totally could. So right here, I'm setting that learning intention, and then we are talking, I'm telling them about the sounds that we're going to work on this week. So I think this week they were learning about the short A and short U sound. So I did 2 words where I say the word really slow and then they say it fast. This particular piece right here was just where they had to, if they heard the sound in the word, they were going to shake their hands. If they didn't hear the sound in the word, they would just keep their hands down. And I'll just link this video in somewhere else in our chat so that you can watch it at another time. And then I have them do, like, I just do a lot of I do, we do, you do. So for this part, we were talking about the short U sound. So I point to the letter as U, the sound is the word is umbrella, and then we do you, umbrella together, and then I just point to it so that they're saying it at home. I wish I had, so for the phonics piece, a nice way to really tie that in would be to, that I have them do at the end of the video is, I have them make 3 tap out sounds in their words. So if the word is hug, they would tap ugh. So they tap the sounds. So it's sort of like a spelling dictation routine. They hear 3 sounds. So I have them make 3 lines on their paper, leaving room at the top. Sorry, I don't have a good colored marker. And then they tap the sounds. First sound, next sound, last sound, g. And they, then I have them write the sounds on the lines. And then when they're done, I give them a few minutes. Always make sure when you're doing a video that you give them just a little bit longer than you think they'll need, because we want to make sure that every kid gets an opportunity to try out the skill. And then I have them hold up the word, and I hold up mine so that they can check theirs. And then I have them rewrite the word next to it all together so that it kind of brings that learning together. And I typically have them practice the first couple sentences of the decodable text with me. I read it to them, we read it together, and then I have them read it on their own so that when they do go to that independent activity of reading it on their own, they are able to, they've already practiced that, so they kind of have some confidence as they're diving in.
Katie, do you want me to go ahead and play it?
Does it, can you?
Yeah, were you not hearing it before?
No, we didn't have any sound.
Oh, that's why, and because I could hear it, but maybe it was because I was muted and we're listening it to from my my screen. So I can start it over because I was like, oh my gosh, you're talking, but you're talking on the video too. So here, let me go back.
Okay, thank you.
See, we're all in this together, and we always have little things like this happen. So let me go ahead and play that, and we'll see if it works.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you a word, and if you hear that sound
Mm-hmm.
in the word that I tell you, I want you to do jazz hands. And if you don't, I want you to keep your hands right in front of you. Okay? Here we go. Our first word is apple. Do you hear the sound in apple? I hope you made jazz hands. Apple starts with the sound. All right, ready? Put your hands down. Here's your next word, peg. Do you hear the sound in the word peg? No, I should not see your hands because we did not hear the sound in the word. Also talking today about that letter we've been learning a lot about, that sound we've been learning a lot about, the sound, like in umbrella. The sound is spelled with a capital U or a lowercase u. Umbrella. Say it with me. Umbrella. Say it by yourself. Great job. Okay, next, we're going to take a look at, you know how I tell you at the end of your lesson that you have some little stories to read after you're done that are in your assignments your teachers assigned to you. Last time we read a different story. This time we're going to read a story about a guy named Gus. And again, I wrote the two first sentences from that story to help you get started. We're going to read these together, and then I want to make sure that you practice reading this whole story 3 times. That's your assignment for today. Here we go. What word is this, everyone? Gus. Gus is a bug. Remember, when I have to figure out the words, I go back and read the sentence again. Gus is a bug. Read it with me one more time. Gus is a bug. Nice work. Now you're going to read it yourself. Our next word is fun.
Switching to a new routine.
So my family is going to go outside and have some fun. What's the word, everyone? It's fun. Good job. We're going to listen to the sounds that we hear in the word fun. What's the first sound you hear in fun? Good. What's the next sound you hear in fun? What's the last sound you hear in fun? Good. We hear 3 sounds. Let's write 3 lines on our paper. Make sure you leave room for those letters. Now, I want you to write the word on your paper. Fun. All right, let's see what you have. There's fun. 3 sounds. Fun. Remember, if you didn't spell it correctly, that's okay. Write it next to the lines. Make sure you write the whole word over. It helps your brain remember the right way to spell fun.
So So for this video, this is kids that have done these routines with me previously. So I try to keep consistency with the lesson, including, which I didn't put in the video, but prior to that, reading the sentence with the words, we practice just reading a list of words that have the sound in it. So they're always following that same routine of review from the previous lesson, the phonemic awareness, reading words, reading it in connected text, and then the spelling. So every time I do a lesson, it follows that same routine, so it's predictable.
So as I monitor the chat, one of the questions that came in was, how do you have the students read the decodable? I think it's incredible. A lot of you popped in with ideas such as Seesaw, Class Dojo has an easy recording feature, Google Classroom. Dawn says to you that you have a great future ahead of you, Katie, in virtual phonemic awareness and phonics videos. So you rock. Thanks for being so vulnerable out there. And then Flipgrid, and then a program called Cami from Asha. So she said, I've also copied the decodable story through the program Cami. I can present it to the students and mark and highlight keywords and sounds. I save it and then post it as a resource in the week posting. Someone's feeling jazz hands, and then Padlet. So lots of good ideas that you can zoom back through the chat. Nicole, if you want to go to the next slide, we want to hear from you. So if you would just take a minute and kind of reflect on some of the things that Debbie shared, that Amy shared, and Katie, and just pop in either what's something that you're taking away from today, or what's something that's really going well for you in regards to authentically engaging your kids and phonemic awareness or phonics instruction. So we're going to give you just a couple minutes to kind of just pop in some ideas, and then to give you time to kind of scroll through that chat so you can see some of the ideas from your colleagues. So I'm going to just give you a couple minutes to do that.
Teresa, while people are chatting, can I add one more quick note from what Katie was sharing? I just want to just share too, I'm at the other end. Now that obviously that was a kindergarten lesson, but at the other end of second grade. So for example, we've been working on spelling 2-syllable words and talking about open and closed syllables. And I've been very impressed with how quickly the kids have taken our procedures that we've done during the school year with tapping out sounds, writing out lines for letters, and they've transitioned that really beautifully into now doing multi-syllable words. We write down a line for each syllable. And so it's really applicable at whatever level that you're teaching at. The kids are really able to, it's a really great thing to work on virtually. It transfers really beautifully, and it's amazing how well you can see the kids' mouths moving and how quickly and able they are to then practice those spelling strategies, even though you're at a distance, even though you can't be there right with them. But just want to let you know that it's continuing to transfer well into, we're doing multi-syllable words, consonant vowel or vowel consonant E syllables, things like that in second grade, and it's still working beautifully. And I think it would continue on well into third, fourth, and fifth grade as well.
Awesome, thanks for sharing. One of the asks was a cheat sheet for all of the different ways to record instruction. So thank you, we took note of that. Nicole, if you would move to the next slide. We're just gonna kind of close our time together just with a couple of key things. Lots of good ideas. I think maybe next time we'll have you pop in and verbally share. We're just still trying to figure out how to best manage the group and also respect the time, because we know how many Zooms and instructional time you have with your kids. So we'll look for feedback on that. So the next slide.
Sure. So the next slide just has like a little technology tip. I know that a lot of you guys are utilizing Google Meet within Google Classroom. And for those of you that are trying to maybe work from a couple different screens, or if you're trying to monitor many different things, sometimes keyboard shortcuts are helpful. So just to like turn on and off the camera really quick, you can just press the control button and E. And then if you want to mute and unmute really quickly, just use control and then a D. Sometimes I find those are a little easy instead of with the mouse as well. And then something that I was hoping to maybe introduce or go through next week is something called Google Jamboard. It's an interactive whiteboard that actually is very helpful when you're trying to get students to post ideas and things, and they can kind of interact with each other. I linked a little video. It's about, if you started at about 3 minutes, it goes for like 2 or 3 more minutes after that, just kind of like it is an introductory way to show you a little bit about Google Jamboard. But I thought maybe the next time we meet, I could go through it. Or if people have already utilized that as a resource, they could also show as well. So just 2 little technology tips there.
Okay. So thank you to Amy. We want to kind of keep a similar structure with these meetings to come. Our hope is to kind of expand. So as you kind of think about who might find interest in this group, I can even just, the chat is continually running right now, just with people sharing lots of different ideas. And that's kind of the purpose of this, is just that quick burst of professional learning ideas that you can take back and share with your colleagues. So thank you to Amy for coming on and sharing with us. And we want all of you. So next week, our focus is really going to be tech tips. I think Debbie had a really good point that what you're thinking about is what you're learning. And so I know for myself, as not being a strong tech person, how do we effectively use technology so it's not a barrier to instruction? How do we do it more seamlessly? So we're going to be coming back and having a few teachers share some strategies. There will be a recorded link on our website for this webinar. So if there's anybody that you're thinking about that this might be helpful, that will be posted there. And then I think, unless team, if I'm missing something else, we're going to announce the 2 winners for our Book Bug gift certificate.
Teresa?
Yeah.
The person who asked whether or not the chat will be available to like view later, is that part of the video, or is there a way we can push out that chat as a document?
Nicole?
Yeah, we should be able to. I'll stay on, and just in case it doesn't record, I'll copy all of it and get it on a document, and then we'll send that out as well. Yeah. I did have Kristen Rizzuto tell me how many people had entered their names and stuff, and I did a random number selector, and the first one was the 15th person, which was Aisha Epp, and I hope I said that correctly. And then the other person ended up being the 7th person in, which was Allison Lanning. So I'll make sure I get those emails to you, and get the emails, and then we will send out those gift cards to BookBug for you guys.
So the last thing before we close, if you would just kind of pop into the chat, we're trying to play around with time. I know, is this a good time for us to meet in the future? And we're trying to think about having a consistent day and time. So if you have any feedback around that, go ahead and pop that into the chat. Otherwise, we will probably reach out to those of you that we invited individually to kind of just get you feedback on this experience and what we could do to make it even more impactful for you. So we hope you have a great week. Hop off and enjoy the sunshine. Thanks, you guys.
It almost felt like the school year again.